It's not rocket science, it's just money. This week on Blue Collar Proud. Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Blue Collar Proud Show, the show that's all about having and living the blue-collar business dream. If you're a business owner and you're dreaming of a success with your company that's beyond your wildest dreams, then Taylor and I want to be a part of that. Basically what we're saying is we want to be in your wildest dreams. Take that for whatever you want to take.
Okay, let's back that up a little. We are running a PG-13 podcast here, dude.
Anyway, my name's Carter Harkins. With me every week here is Taylor Hill. Hey,
I gotta rein you in sometimes, man.
We are excited to be here, though, Proud Nation, and to contribute to your success. We're talking about something this week that I think is absolutely something that needs to be covered from time to time, just to kind of check in with. We're going to be talking about money.
And it's your favorite subject, isn't it?
I got to tell you, we were in planning meetings talking about what we needed to do, just in the agenda, looking at the schedule for episodes, and somebody said, "Well, we need to do an episode on money. I mean, it's tax season, and there's we need an episode on money." And I was just like, okay. I just can't get real excited. So here's the.
I was starting to say, you get excited about money.
Well,
I can get you excited about money.
Sure. No, I actually, I can't stay focused on it for a long period of time. Yeah. My personality, it is draining for me to spend a lot of time in the numbers, in the finances side of the business. It's just not my strong suit. Yeah. But I do like money. In fact, we just did just last month in Portland, Oregon, we spoke at the Oregon HPBA Association. Great group. It was a good time with them. Yeah. And we did a session. Yeah. The entire session was called If you like money, you like numbers, and I can prove it.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, you have to think of it this way. $1 equals 1.
Right. Yeah.
$10 equals 10.
Right.
Yeah.
Money is represented by numbers.
By numbers.
Don't be afraid of money. It's not rocket science. It's not difficult. It just takes some things, to put in place to get right. Right. And once you've got those systems and things set up for you and you work those systems, money takes care of itself. You can make good decisions, and that's the side of it I like, is the strategy side, thinking, innovating new ideas, and then I just look at money as a resource that needs to be there to fuel my ideas.
Well, a lot of times you have to set your systems up to give you the information you need in order to make A, good decisions,
Absolutely.
B, good strategies, and C, to make more money so you can do the stuff you want to do.
That's right. So it's just putting certain things in place and then focusing on it long enough that and it's not long, just long enough that you get that information that you need out of it. And when you do focus on it, even for just a few brief minutes, you suddenly remember and you realize all over again, this is not difficult. Yeah. This is not rocket science. It's actually pretty simple. So that's why I love our guest today. Ellen Rohr is our guest today. We're going to get right into the basics of
great.
What we're going to.
But I do want to say one thing. Proud Nation, when he says it's not long, he means it doesn't look long. Yep. But you do look long enough. Yeah. So that's the important thing.
So what we've noticed is that different personality types have little patience for certain things, and then they can go deep on other things that are very interesting to that person, that personality type, or that brain, the way that it works. So finances for me, that's where I'm like, all right, give me the top line, give me the quick, here's the bullet
quick
points,
and dirty.
Right. But man, when we start innovating new things, I get lost. I mean, I get way down in it, heads down for long periods of time. Getting stuff done. And that's where you're like more, okay, just give me a synopsis. If you want.
Let's do the same thing. Just give me the highlights, baby. Where are we?
Yeah. So it's good that we have each other as a team. But for those that don't are you own your business outright yourself, and we're going to talk about some strategies of how to really focus on the money in the way that you need to get the results that you want to grow that dream business. So I'm not going to belabor the point anymore. She's one of our favorite people, Ellen Rohr. She sat with us and gave us a couple of interviews where this is actually part one of financial basics that she talked about. If you know anything about Ellen, you know this is a subject that she's written about. She has a book about it. She talks about it when she speaks. It's something that I think is important. So let's listen to what she has to say. We'll come back after that and talk a little bit more.
You bet.
Ellen Rohr, welcome back to the show.
Okay. Yay.
We love
Thanks
you,
for
Ellen.
having me. I love talking money, honey. And here we are.
So tell us a little bit about, let's just walk through some of the specific things that business owners need to know about just concerning cash flow, concerning their finances in their business.
It's easy to fall for myths like if you do what you love, the money will follow. If you're a good person and you're doing right by your customers and your employees, the money will take care of itself. My friends, I have not found that to be true. And my whole life changed when I was willing to confront the money honey. So when it comes to cash flow, one solid piece of advice is to make sure you're operating from a known financial position. I call this KFP. Known financial position means that you can run a balance sheet and a profit and loss on a weekly basis. You understand what those reports mean. You understand where the dollars are coming from, like how did those reports get populated, and you trust that the information is current and accurate. All right, so you've got to keep score in the game of business. The money doesn't just take care of itself. So once you operate from a known financial position, I've got some really good news for you. It's easy to fix your business. Cash and profits fix just about everything. So it's not like there's 100 moving parts when it comes to the financial area of your business. There's just a few. So let's look at, do we have a second to break down what the balance sheet tells you?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay, so the balance sheet was created in the 1400s by Luca Pacioli, who was best friends of Leonardo da Vinci. I mean, that's an interesting story. Luca Pacioli was a monk and a mathematician, and he figured out this equation: assets equals liabilities plus equity, the basis for the balance sheet equation, which has not changed one jot since the 1400s. And double entry accounting is the technology by which this mathematical equation stays in balance. And the profit and loss is the sister financial report to the balance sheet. And those two reports tell you just about everything you need to know about your company. Now, in the game of business is to grow your assets, and assets are your stuff. That's your cash, accounts receivable, which is an IOU for cash, your inventory, your equipment, maybe some land in a building. It's your stuff. And the more stuff you have, the more good things you can do, the more freedom you have, the more options you have. There's only 3 ways to grow assets. One is to borrow money. That's a liability. Another is to invest in your company. That's an equity transaction. And the third way to grow your company is, get this, charge more than it costs for stuff and manufacture a profit. It is a money for nothing, chicks for free way to manufacture money. Now, if you get how simple and beautiful that is, then, well, the effect that knowledge had on me was to not only blow my mind, but to make me a liberated, wealthy person, because those principles apply to any business. So you can increase cash flow by borrowing money. Assets go up, liabilities go up. But there's a downside, right? You got to pay the money back. And you may run out of room to borrow more money. You can't keep borrowing money if you don't have assets to cover that money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the second way to grow assets is to invest in the company or get an investor. But at some point, you don't want to keep writing a personal check to fund your business. Or even if one of the sharks from Shark Tank came over and invested in your company, they're going to want their money back out again. So while those 2 ways work to increase cash, if you were to get an investment infusion, or if you were to borrow some money, you run out of runway with those 2 options. And the third option is limitless, and that's to charge more than it costs for stuff and generate a profit. And when you do, you'll see that information, those transactions on the profit and loss. Sales go up, expenses, then profit. And the more profit you have, then ultimately if you take that profit in cash, you're going to create your own cash flow too. So sales minus expenses equals profit. And cash is if you take that profit in cash. And if you make enough profit and enough in cash, you're going to be able to solve just about every business challenge. Now, that's a little awkward to envision without the financial reports in front of you. So you might want to listen to this with your QuickBooks open and see if you can follow along with the balance sheet and the profit and loss. What do you think so far?
I think you're right on target. And I think we need to make some resources available too. I know your book that you've written goes into some more in-depth around some of these basics, and that'd be a great primer. So we'll make sure that that's available in the show notes as well.
Right. That's why I wrote the book, because like it blew my mind when I finally figured out if you charge more than it costs for stuff, then you manufacture profit. And if you charge enough, if you make enough profit, you can pay your debts. You can get out of debt. You can pay yourself and your people really well. You can buy more equipment and assets to grow your company. There aren't a lot of moving parts. It's all about getting really profitable and taking those profits in cash. So cash flow is the topic of is the overall topic today. But I wanted to back up and make sure that you really can't have a conversation about cash flow. You can't study your own financials if your financials are a mess. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at your balance sheet and your profit and loss, and there's all sorts of weird words and you don't understand them, or there's negative numbers where there should be positives, or it says that you have $850,000 in your checking account and you only have $20,000 in your checking account, you've got to go and fix those financials. And everybody's getting messy. It's okay. But it's always a good exercise to circle up with your CPA, with your bookkeeper, with anyone who's doing data entry at your company. Gather them around the table, have QuickBooks up, have the printed reports handy, and go through and audit your financial reports. I'm kind of dyslexic, so I use like a ruler and then go through, okay, what's this? What does that account mean? How do I know the numbers are right in there? If they're not right, how do we fix it? What do we use to verify the information? And you just hammer away at your financials until they're rocking right. Yeah. Then, once they are, now we can do a little analysis. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'll pause for questions here.
Well, actually, I want to understand, because I know you're talking about making sure that those numbers are accurate and right, and I think that a lot of business owners take the more I'm going to look into my crystal ball and read the tea leaves and just kind of hope that I'm somewhere close to being right before I whip out my charge card and start buying new equipment and everything else and just figure it out. I'm going to look at my checkbook, or I'm going to look at the balance in the bank, and I'm going to say, oh, I've got money, and then go spend it. But cash flow, that's where we start talking about cash flow and the need to understand the full picture of the business at any given moment. So take us there a little bit. Talk to us a little bit about why having those numbers correct and important helps you make better business decisions.
Well, and just something you said too about kind of the magic part of it. A lot of business owners I talk to will say, well, I've got this really great accountant. I trust him implicitly. He knows what's going on. She knows what's going on. That's not okay. Your responsibility as the business owner is to know what's going on. It's your money. It's your financial responsibility. It's your stewardship. So yay, if you have a great accountant. And an indicator that you have a great accountant is when he or she says, yeah, saddle up. Let's sit side by side here and go through the reports together to make sure you understand.
Yeah, so I want to ask you this, because I have a theory about something. Because I get really frustrated when people come to me and we start talking about finances and budgets and this kind of stuff, and they go, well, I just don't like numbers.
Yeah.
And I always look at them and say, okay, I have one question. Do you like money? And they go, yes, I really like money and I want to make more of it. Then you have to realize you love numbers. If you're going to tell me you love money, you love numbers, because that's all money is numbers.
It's so true. And like, I was that guy. I fought this. This is why I have no judgment, only love as we do these segments. I was that guy. I didn't want anything to do with it. I don't see numbers very well. I don't see very well. And give me a spreadsheet and I want to just blow my brains out. However, what happened is it isn't that hard. It's like if you don't speak Spanish and everyone around you speaking Spanish, you just feel stupid. It's not that you're stupid. You just need like a Spanish-English dictionary. You need someone to help you with some words and some key phrases. And before you know it, you're going to be slightly conversational. That makes a big difference. And then you get really engaged. And the study of Spanish is 100,000 times more than the study of numbers. It's not that complicated. Just when you start to learn the basics, you'll realize the basics are everything. Mm-hmm. Now, as you dig into it, most business owners get the profit and loss. They look at the report that shows the sales minus expenses equals profit. They get that. And then you mentioned too the checkbook. You'll go to the checkbook and you'll see that you have some money in the checkbook and then you're off to the races. The King Granddaddy scorecard, when it comes to understanding the financial health of your company, is the balance sheet. And the balance sheet often gets overlooked. It's a little confusing. Assets equals liabilities plus equity. People who haven't defined the words for, if you've never had the words defined for you, you might feel a little stupid. So you go through these things with the accountant. In my book, Where Did the Money Go? There's a nice glossary in layman's terms of weird accounting words and phrases. Because I get that. I understand how it is to feel stupid when it comes to these financial things. But just keep asking questions, get people like us to help you, get your accountant on board and start studying what a balance sheet is, how it relates to the profit and loss. Now, on the balance sheet, what you're going to find that you don't find on the profit and loss is what you have for cash. So cash shows up in the assets section of your balance sheet. So you'll see cash and accounts receivable at the very top of the asset section. That's because these are the best assets. They're the most flexible. Cash is king and accounts receivable is supposed to be turning into cash in very short order. All right. But that's good to know. What do I have in cash and accounts receivable? And then for cash flow purposes, oh, wow. It just sounded like we had someone from on high join us.
Yeah, they're driving right through the studio here.
It sounded like angels. Let's just pretend angels came to join us. That's good. All right. So at the top of your balance sheet, at the asset section, you're going to see cash and accounts receivable. Then in the liability section of your balance sheet, liabilities are what you owe. You're going to see your accounts payable and your credit card charges and sales tax payable and perhaps a short-term line of credit. Those things that you owe will appear, and those are called current liabilities. Current liabilities are liabilities that are technically due within the year, but for our purposes, it's usually those things that are due within 30 to 60 days. So a cash flow analysis is looking at the relationship of what we have in cash and accounts receivable compared to what we have in current liabilities. That's called a quick ratio. So suppose we have 100,000 in cash and we have 200,000 in accounts receivable, and then we have 100,000 in current liabilities. We have a ratio of 3-to-1 or 3 times the cash and accounts receivable that we need to pay our current liabilities, the bills that are due right now. That's a good thing to know. And that does not appear on our profit and loss. And if we're just looking at the checkbook, we may not pay attention to all those bills that we have to pay and perhaps some of the debt that we're accruing. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So cash flow is this relationship of what we have in cash with what we have in bills to pay. And that information is found on the balance sheet. So audit your financials, make sure they're rocking right. And now we can do a study of that relationship. And if we find that we don't have very much in cash, maybe it's all stuck in accounts receivable, that at least causes the conversation, well, what could we do to change that situation? Do we accept credit cards? Do we make financing super easy, a no-brainer? What are some of the behavioral, operational changes that we could make that would help us solve that accounts receivable problem? Or maybe you've just got so much in debt that the second cash comes into your company, it's going right back out the door to pay debt. Well, this is where looking at your balance sheet and paying attention to this ratio can be helpful, because borrowing more money isn't going to help. This is where if a company, if I'm asked to help in a situation where a company has got a serious cash flow problem, the good news is it can be fixed. Most of the time, it can be fixed if you are willing to do whatever it takes to get really, really profitable. Because that's the only other way you're going to bring cash into the company without incurring more debt or having to invest in your company yourself. Because at this point, probably the sharks won't be interested in a company that's going upside down. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm envisioning this on the balance sheet as we talk. How are you guys doing? Do you have some questions? Can I pause here for a minute?
No, I'm good. I'm going right along with you, but I pretty much do all this in our business. So
I will say this is one of the most clear explanations of the subject that I've ever heard. So you're doing great.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Carter, because Carter's usually the one that goes, okay, now what is that? So if he's saying it's clear, you're good.
A little more head scratching. And I am, as we're speaking, we're limited by, you're hearing my voice come across the airwaves. If you do have your balance sheet, or you re-listen to this podcast or this broadcast, and you have your balance sheet, your income statement with you, that can be of service to you, right? And there's really no substitute for studying up on these financial reports. But the really good news is, if I can learn it, anybody can learn it. That's why I'm so enthusiastic about it. Carter, I'm much more like you than like Taylor in terms of my affinity for the topic, my interest in it at all, zero. But I was going broke. I was at a point of incredible pain and debt and desperation when I finally had to pull my head out and figure it out, or go get a job, which I was perfectly willing to do. But my mentor, I've talked about Frank Blau before on the program, was one of many great mentors I had, but he's really the one I credit with grabbing me by the chin and saying, you got to learn how to read your financial reports, sister. There's no substitute for that. And once I did, I realized it wasn't that hard. And there was so much fun to be had by keeping score, changing our operating basis, and then seeing the impact on the score. This is why I love a price increase. I loves me a price increase, because a price increase is the easiest thing I can do to increase cash flow. Just think of it mathematically. If I were to double my prices, doing exactly what I'm doing right now, mathematically, I would double my sales. My top line would be twice as big. And if my expenses remain the same, all of that price increase would flow down to the bottom line of profit. I'd have so much profit that I could pay all those taxes without complaining, still have money left over to pay down some debt, to stockpile some cash for a rainy day, to buy new assets if possible. Now, suppose you lose some customers because you raise your prices. That could happen. However, I might also look into sales training, or a different pricing menu, or being better, cleaner, sober, faster than the other guy, right? That's where the game comes in. You can tell I get excited about this.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's the play. It is a game. If,
that's all it is.
Yeah. If you look at it as a game, it's also fun.
There's another guru who had a big impact on my life. Jack Stack in The Great Game of Business. He wrote the book Great Game of Business. Are you familiar with this one?
Yeah.
Love him. Love Jack Stack. He still operates. His main job is the CEO of Springfield Manufacturing Company. It's this umbrella company of like 60 employee-owned companies, and he's just a total hero to me. But what he did is he not only teaches you the basics of how to keep score, but the magic is when you push down the org chart this information. You start sharing the balance sheet and the profit and loss with the great people who work with you. Now, for some of you listening, this is going to make you want to poop your pants, but I'm going to encourage you not to do that. But instead, to start opening the books, consider it, read his book, The Great Game of Business. You can do this in phases. You don't have to just show everybody everything. But you can share pertinent information with your team members, because when they get in on the game, when you lay it out as a game, when you keep score, even this is what I found, even if you don't reward people monetarily for playing, they will play. They want to play. They want to do something more interesting than putting washers on bolts or cables down drains or piping. All of that is honorable, beautiful work, but it gets even more interesting if you elevate it to a game. Let's make some money here, team.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you do have to let them in on the game, share the profits, share, with bonuses and stuff, but not right away. They can help you fix your business first.
That's a key insight. That's good.
Yeah.
We could take this conversation further and go deeper with it. I'd love to have you back and do just that. Would you be willing to do that?
Oh, I will come anytime. Anytime. Right. Love you guys.
Very good. Well, part 2 coming up then, Proud Nation. Ellen Rohr, thank you for being on.
Woohoo. Thanks, guys.
See, that wasn't so painful.
It never pains me.
I was talking to myself. She actually had some great points, I love how simple she puts it. These are the essentials. But I want to ask you, because money is something that you talk about as well.
Yeah.
And I want you to just drill down real quick, get real specific for listeners who are out there. We build these workarounds in our brains. Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, we just know how the brain works, and a lot of us fell backwards into business. And
that's true.
We weren't paying attention to we were working for somebody else, and we suddenly realized, I could do this. Mm-hmm. And so we slapped the magnet on the side of the truck and grab our tools, and suddenly we're in business.
Yeah.
And so we're not thinking about business finance. We're not thinking about, bookkeeping, all of these other things. We just kind of figure that out as we go. And so a lot of us start running our business from the checkbook.
Yeah.
Reading, opening up the checkbook, going, yeah, I got enough money to buy that tool or buy these supplies. Yeah, I got it. It's no problem. And a lot of times that creates some problems. And, so what Ellen was talking about really applies. But I want you to talk to that guy who's at that point. He's like, you know what? I got to put some more thought into this. I got to start running this like a real business. I got to start thinking about my finances differently. Right. Talk to that guy. What would you say, like, top 3 things? I don't know if that's putting you on the spot, but top 3 things that you would tell that guy to start with.
Well, the very first thing, and there's a lot of people when they first start into business, they marry their business money with their home money, and so they pay everything
all one checkbook,
or even if it's under their name in separate accounts, they tend to say, "Oh, I need a little bit here, so I'll borrow a little there." So they're it's mixing that money up. Yeah. Okay. So the very first thing I would say is don't do that, because you really need to figure out if your business can support your family. And if you're constantly borrowing money and throwing money back from one to the other, you're just not paying attention really to either, because now it takes both your whatever is in your family and your business to make something happen. And then if something happens that you really do need something, that you can totally suck your business dry and not make really good decisions. So it really is about keeping those things totally separate. It also means that at tax time, you really know what your business does, because you'll either have to do a Schedule C if you're doing it as a sole proprietor, right, or you're going to follow, you're going to have an LLC or something, but it's all taxed down. You got to separate them anyway. And man, if you're running them all and they're getting messed up, it can cause problems. So separate those out.
Yeah.
Have a business finance, call it your business. I would even say go to a different bank and bank at a different place. And just keep them totally separate. Mm-hmm. Okay,
good
that's
advice.
Number one. So the second thing I would do is invest in some good accounting software. I mean, there's QuickBooks out there, which is relatively easy to learn, and it's not that expensive to do. If you're just yourself, and I kind of a guy, and you don't have to worry about payroll because you're taking money out, you're doing it as a sole proprietor, that's fine. if you start getting employees, then QuickBooks, you can actually pay employees out of QuickBooks. You can upgrade those things. So it's a really good software for somebody that's just beginning and will help you grow into whatever you need to be. Because there are big companies that use QuickBooks as well.
Yeah.
So you can grow into that. But
QuickBooks also has a version, that's specifically for contractors, and it makes it real easy to do job costing.
Yes.
To track, your materials and everything else to see whether or not you're getting in the ballpark. It's great for analyzing at the end of the year just how well you did in estimating jobs.
Yeah, and they've already got, in that particular version, they've already got what they call the categories set up for you. And so you're not having to think about and set up all the categories.
Right.
Yeah. So that's really good too. You've got those set up for you, and it's just learning how to run the reports, which is actually kind of fun, just to play with the reports and see the different kinds of reports that you can do from that. So I think the third thing is to get some training in that, because let me tell you, when I say this to people, they kind of go, ugh.
I got to go to school for this?
I got to go to school for this. There's several different things you can do. There are bookkeepers that actually will teach you if you have that availability. But there are tons of resources online. QuickBooks has resources, YouTube. Look at the resources you have online and start learning some of the things about QuickBooks. If you can, make sure you find the version that you have, because if you buy it in the cloud, which is different from if you buy it in
QuickBooks Online is different than the desktop
version.
Right.
Yeah. So, and they're going to work a little bit different. So just make sure whatever training you're looking at the right thing. So, and then the fourth thing is, you're not an accountant and you're not a bookkeeper. You're a technician. And hopefully a technician trying to learn how to be a business owner and grow in that business. That means that as soon as you can give that job to somebody who knows what they're doing, do it.
Let me ask you this, and I agree. Anytime you can get specific expertise in your business, you're going to be doing good. So the moment you can afford that, you should go get it.
Yeah.
But does that mean that I don't have to take care of step number 3 and get the training if I just hire somebody else to do it for me?
I actually would say no. I think you need to know enough about your bookkeeping service that no matter who is in your business, you're able to go in there and find out all the different things that you need to look at in case anybody's... If you don't learn it, then you're dependent.
Yep.
This is not about dependency, okay? This is about time. Once you learn it, you understand it. Once you can understand what a balance sheet is, what a P&L is, what's a profit and loss statement, and what your cash flow. Those are the 3, I think, absolute things you have to understand, because each one tells you something different in your business. So once you have a really good understanding of those 3 things and know how to create those reports, know how to go in and look and double check and make sure that nobody is doing double entry. There's a lot of different little accounting things that people can do. Most people are honest. Honestly, they are. The other thing about that position is you don't have to have somebody 5 days a week.
No.
You can, when we hired, I could do everything. You know that. I could do payroll. I could do everything. But I hired somebody that I'd worked with before in an accounting office for her to come in once a week. And she now comes in 3 times a week. And there's probably going to be a time in the next 2 or 3 years she'll be here 5 days a week. So we just act accordingly, you just hire people for the time that takes them to get the stuff done that you need done.
That's it.
You don't have to have somebody in all the time. So I would just tell people that as soon as you can get someone in to help you with that, especially if you're not a numbers person, okay? You can learn it and understand those numbers represent money, because you may not be a numbers person, but if you're in business, you want more money. You're a money person. So just if you can make that mind shift that what you're looking at is just not raw numbers in math class, you're really looking at, how do I make more money? What do I do to get more money in my pocket at the end of the day? What do I need to do to get more money into my business, into my community? If I'm hiring people, how do I do that? What are the strategies? What do I need to look at? How much cash flow do I need to have? How much can I borrow? A lot of people, talk about borrowing, and Ellen is going to say everything there is to say in this and in the next segment about that. But there's some strategies along that way. But you have to know what those strategies are. You just don't do it without knowing what you're doing and understanding it. And that's really the main thing here. It's a basic understanding of the business numbers that you need to know so that you can run a good business.
And feel confident that you have a full understanding. Your finger on the pulse.
Yeah.
That's it.
And if you have somebody in your business or your wife, husband, whatever, that is better with that than you are, then sit down with them. Have those conversations. You just can't feel put upon if they're trying to teach you something. That's the hardest thing. I know my wife and I go back and forth about this because I'm a little bit better with numbers than she is. Actually, she's better with numbers, raw numbers, than I am all day long. She just haven't translated yet that numbers equals money. She's getting there, and I think probably this year she will get there, honestly, because she's made some shifts lately just in our discussions. But she would have made them a lot sooner had she not thought of me as the adversary. So if you've got someone in your life, remember, they're on your side.
Yeah.
It's not an adversarial situation.
Well, it can be. And I think that would be a great conversation for another podcast to talk about money personalities. And,
it might be. Yeah. So, but you have to work through that and get to that place where you realize you're both coming from the same side.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, you probably already know this, but Taylor and I wrote a book called Blue Collar Proud, 10 Principles for Building a Kick-Ass Business You Love. And in fact, one of the chapters in that book is completely dedicated to the subject of financial health. So if you are interested in learning more, getting our take as we've written about it in our book, you can find that over at Amazon.com. And also, Ellen has some resources that you definitely need to know about, and find her link in the show notes for this episode. If you're interested in getting the show notes, the best place to find those, if you're an iTunes user, then you're already know about show notes. But if you're not an iTunes user, I'm just going to tell you, go get our free Blue Collar Proud Show app. It's the BCP Show app. It's available for both iOS and Android. So just go to your favorite app store and look for it. Find it, download it. It's free. Lots of good information, including the show notes and the other bonus content there as well. I have to end this episode with an apology. I'm embarrassed. So a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that, I read some feedback from someone who had posted in the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group. This person's name was Tersh Blissett. And I was in a hurry, I guess, but the name sounded familiar at the time. I was like, I know this person. Who is this person? I can't remember exactly where I know this person's name from, but I'm pretty sure that, but I had remembered it wrong. Anyway, here's where I screwed up. We just got an email today from, this is from Kenny Carter. It was submitted.
Thank you, Kenny Carter.
Thanks, Kenny, for setting me straight here, man. So this came through the Blue Collar Proud Show, bcpshow.com, general comment, the contact form there. He says, the person y'all mentioned about maintenance agreements on the April 11th, 2018 show, Tersh Blissett, dude, he's a male, not a female. I was like, oh my gosh, no. And as I'm reading this, it's dawning on me who Tersh is. Anyway, he goes on to say, Kenny goes on to say, I got a laugh out of that as he has his own HVAC company and podcast. It's part of the Blue Collar Roots Network and is called Service Business Mastery. He recommended y'all's show on a Facebook conversation, and that is why I started listening to y'all. I'm also an HVAC business owner and appreciate y'all and what you're doing. Also, have a great weekend. I was like,
Hey,
dang it.
Say his podcast again, because the least we can do is put a shout out for Tersh's podcast.
Tersh Blissett, his podcast is called Service Business Mastery. I've even listened to it, and it was like all of a sudden I remembered who the guy was. And if you go online, you look on his website, you'll see a picture of the guy. Who, I mean, this is a man's man, okay? Mm-hmm. And here I am trying to change his gender. No offense, Tersh, and I just want to publicly extend to you an opportunity and an invitation to come on our show and have a great conversation with us. With apologies, I hope you're not like already just pissed at us for screwing it up, and I do apologize for that. And I wanted to set the record straight.
I just want to let you know, if you knew how many phone calls I get with, "Is this Miss Taylor?" Yeah, so it happens.
It does, and it's no disrespect.
Yeah,
but it's. I wanted to set the record straight. So, Tersh, now I know who you are. I remember, and would love to have a conversation with both of us. We'd love to have you on the show. So, okay, that's going to do it for this episode. Just a reminder, you can get all sorts of information about where to hang out with us by simply going to bcpshow.com/connect. That's going to do it for this episode. As always, Taylor and I want to thank you for listening. We also want to thank the people that make this show happen every single week. Aaron Blaze, our technical director. Jessica Wynn, our show coordinator, and Jonathan Sanders, our community manager. Until next time, remember, it takes the same energy to build a business you hate as it does to build one that you're proud of. So why not build it the blue-collar proud way? We'll see you next time.
The Blue Collar Proud Show is a production of the Blue Collar Proud Network.